Since I was 15 years old, I've had a burning desire to start a business, always thinking of idea after idea. At 19, I found an idea that worked, and ever since poured all my time and effort into it to reach success. Join me on my journey to the top, where I interview business experts, marketing wizards, and the successful people of the world to discover how to make it in business and life as a young person eager to succeed. My name's Louis Adkins, and this is Young and Successful. So, Jamie, PPC and Google Ads. As a small business owner, what do you think the opportunity is for Google Ads?
Yeah, that's a good first question. It's nice kicking it off like that. I think a lot of small business owners make the mistake and feel like they need to put in lots and lots of money into Google Ads to see any return at all. Some verticals that is true, but in a lot and most verticals, especially if you're only advertising in a certain local area, that's not the case at all. So my advice to a small business that wants to get started, do it. Make sure you keep it into your local area. You don't want to be. Oh, what was the question?
Well,
I've gone already.
No, it's all right. So Google Ads, what is the opportunity there for if I'm a small business owner and I'm trying to start and grow my business? What can Google Ads give me that perhaps another opportunity can't?
Got you. Yeah. So basically with Google Ads, the visibility is you're targeting people right at the bottom of the funnel. So people are searching the services that you offer straight into Google. You can do this by location, which I would recommend for a small business. So you can find people in your local area that are basically searching for your services and you can be visible to them there.
Cool. Right. And then before we go a bit deeper into Google Ads, because I want to talk about small businesses, because you've managed a lot of smaller budgets, and also I want to talk about the bigger businesses that you've managed as well, because very, very cool and exciting. Perhaps maybe it's just important first for you to introduce yourself and just introduce yourself, how you've been working in PPC marketing and your early career to where you are now.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Jamie, if you haven't seen already. But I've been working in marketing for about 3 years now. Just in Google Ads. I think it's just shy of 3 years. Started as a trainee. So basically wasn't allowed to do anything, like just watching people do it. And then I've gone from, as you say, from working on small businesses from £500 a month to huge businesses at $500,000 a month. So there's been like a real growth section in that bit. But yeah, it's been a crazy fast 3 years with lots of learning and still learning today. So yeah.
Cool. And is most of your time now, do you spend most of your time on the bigger ones or the smaller ones, or is it quite like an even split?
Yeah, still mixed. So yeah, I enjoy, both have their pros and cons. But yeah, at the minute it's an even split.
Cool. And then, so let's lean over to the smaller side, obviously, because that's kind of the focus of the podcast and what people will be most interested to hear, because most people can't spend the £500,000 a month on the Google Ads budget. So when you're approaching a small account and say they haven't ran ads before, it's completely new, as most business owners are when they approach ads. I think as well, ads can be quite a scary thing because you have to put money down up front, and sometimes that can be quite a scary thing to do. So when you approach a new account and they haven't had any ads before, what are the things that you look for? It doesn't have to be specific strategies either, just what are those things you look for?
Yeah. So, first off, demand is their search volume for like what this person's offering. That's always a good place to start. As I mentioned, like you can get really local with it, with like the targeting. So are there people in the area searching for what this business is offering? That's always number one. That I think starting there, and when you're doing your like keyword research and stuff, it's great to be able to give the client like an idea of how many people are searching based off of average click-through rates, how many clicks they may get, and then based off of average, conversion rates for the vertical, how many conversions they may get. That's if they haven't ran ads before and they don't have any data at all. Let's just say they're brand new, they've got no data at all, like organic conversion rates as well.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where I would start.
So when you first start, it's a case of looking at, okay, here's the amount of searches I may be able to get for the product that I'm offering. And
Yeah.
then you start to kind of reverse engineer, okay, so I can get this many searches, which means about this many impressions. And then you look at the average cost per clicks. Is that what you're that's how you're saying to
Yeah.
kind of work out, okay. And then obviously there are lots of different things you can do within Google Ads. There are different types of campaigns. And I feel like when I first loaded up Google Ads, you're sort of pushed into the route, you're sort of pushed into certain types of, Google tells you to use these automated strategies. They tell you all these recommendations. Are those recommendations like, are they good to follow those, or should you perhaps, you know, consider doing something your own and maybe not listen to Google straight away?
Yeah, so if you're new and you haven't got a Google Ads account, you may be loaded up into like a smart campaign to begin with, which is
Hmm.
not what I work with whatsoever. So that is basically, Google will scan your website and then it will basically set it up for you. I work on the expert side of stuff. So we come out of those sorts of campaigns and we go into, campaigns that we can create from search, display, performance
Hmm.
max, all of those sorts of campaigns where, historically, and it's now been memed that Google's recommendations aren't always the best.
Yeah.
There's some in there that are, they can use AI to guide, certain decisions, and some things will make performance better. But,
Hmm.
from what we do, me, yourself, those recommendations for the most part are to spend more money.
Yeah, that's what I always say to people when they're starting, when with my clients, when they're starting Google Ads. It's like, what you got to think of is, what is Google's intention for the recommendations that they're making? And usually it's because they want you to spend more money. Sure, they want you to get good results because they want you to stay longer, but
Yeah,
also they're going to ask you to do things that perhaps get them to spend a bit more money. Um, yeah, so as you said there, you touched on like Performance Max and all these different campaign types. Now, I don't use Performance Max because my industry that I work is financial services, very regulated, and they want to have control over the things
yeah.
that go out there. But I just want to get your thoughts on. So I've got a business. How do you pick the campaigns per business? Because obviously I know that different campaigns work better for other businesses. So what do you look for?
Sure. If we're going from basically like how we started, of someone that hasn't started before,
Hmm.
and to be fair, even big businesses, people want to jump in and create, right, I'm gonna take over this account. I'm gonna create 6 performance max campaigns, 12 search campaigns, and 2 display campaigns. I don't know why. But yeah, that amount. But and that's where they start. To me, that's completely backwards. I want to start at the most hyper, like, qualified place I can. So
Okay.
I'm talking brand search, really bottom of the funnel search, remarketing, those sorts of things.
Hmm.
And then we can start to build a base. Like, if you're running Google Ads, I wouldn't look at it as if you're running it for, it's like a quick thing. I would look to run it consistently over a long period of time. So what we want to
Yeah.
do is start building the base with those really high quality um like campaigns where we're going to drive conversions. So that's how I
Yeah.
always look at it. Others, again, will just make 15 search campaigns, give them all 50p a day, and just pray. But that's not the way I
Okay.
like to work.
Cool, cool, cool. So it's sort of like you start small with the things that you know are like the most relevant, and then you kind of
Yeah,
build on the foundation. I like that idea of building foundations for the long term, because I think what a lot of small business owners that I speak to, they do see Google Ads as this thing that they like switch it on when, times are really hard and they need something quickly. And then when they've got a bit, they can turn it off and stop spending the money. But do you find that obviously if you start off with the thought in mind that you're going to be doing this is a long-term thing, how I'm going to generate revenue for my business, whether that be leads or sales, is that the best approach then, to always have that long-term sort of outlook?
yeah, that's the way I like to do it. Because then, you've got unlimited time to test and unlimited time to scale. You're not just focused on what's going to happen in the next, sometimes you get asked for daily reports and you can't even, like, I wouldn't trust daily reports anyway. So yeah, I would always like to look to the future and long-term strategies. Those are
Mhm.
the I think the best way to find actually good results in
Yeah.
accounts for the most part, just like long-term strategies for sure.
Okay, long-term strategy. So I think what we're doing here is we're kind of like, I think it's quite good if we imagine that we've got like a small business and we're taking them through the process of like their ad account. So like up
Sure.
to now, you've had to think about, okay, Here's the campaigns that might work for me. Like I'm going to target some brand focused keywords, and also the most bottom of the funnel. And you said remarketing as well. The things that are, would you say as well to start with the products or services that you know are your best sellers, or the thing that you want to sell the most of?
100%. Yeah. Like I say, you want to scale later on. What I want to do is I want to drive as many conversions through the account as possible, as soon as possible,
Hmm.
and start to make the business money as soon as possible. The longer duration you leave between starting a Google Ads account and giving them their first bit of money, it's just time that they could leave. It's like, you want to build that and give them the results that if they're paying an agency or a freelancer that they're paying for, and it's not cheap. So that I want to deliver results as soon as possible is, yeah, the long and short of it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to put yourself in the shoes of a small business owner, okay? And you're setting up your ad account.
Yeah.
So let's say you've got your campaign and because there's lots of different ones, but I think from the businesses I interact with most, and also the other people I speak to, and I don't know, I'd like to know your thoughts on this, but typically I feel like search is the most popular one I hear people talking about.
Definitely. I mean, I reckon it will soon be overtaken by Performance Max, but I
Okay,
agree. Search
interesting.
is definitely, yeah,
Okay, well, we'll talk about Performance Max then as well. But for now, if you're walking through setting up your search campaign, so this is quite, at the ground level,
yeah.
what what are we going to do? Could you just like walk through?
Yeah, sure. So first things first is we want to establish what we want to target, what is the budget, um, how we want to target it as well. Are we going
Hmm.
to sort of go at competitors? Are we not going to go at competitors? Um, how many ad groups are we going to run? How many campaigns are we going to run? Which all ties back into budget and like what you're offering as well. So
Okay,
that's
yeah,
basically where I would start
yeah,
for any search campaign, to be
yeah.
honest.
And then so budget, because I get this all the time with clients. They go, well, how much should I spend on my ads? And it's not always, I think, that concrete of an answer, is it? To just say, well, you should spend this much because it's about what you want, isn't it? So how do you, I mean, you might not necessarily pick budgets yourself. I'm not too sure. But how do you, if you were a small business owner, how would you suggest coming up with your budget?
Sure. Yeah. No, to be fair, in my, experience, I've only ever been given budgets. This is how much we've got to spend. This is how much we're spending.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's mainly working with bigger businesses and it's not their money that they're spending. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with starting small, but what you can do is earlier on I mentioned keyword research. You can see the amount of impressions that you're going to get, and we can work out the average click-through rate as well. So
Hmm.
of that vertical, how many clicks do we want to drive to the website and what's the average conversion rate? So we can start to work backwards based off of those numbers is like, right, how much do we want to invest and what could we maybe potentially see of that, because it is just an estimate. But that's a nice way, I think, to get started. And again, there's nothing wrong with starting small and building up, like building those foundations, um,
Hmm.
and starting to go from there. Like, like I say, if you look at it in a long-term way, in a long-term view, starting small and building up and scaling over a long period of time is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, and what I notice you keep coming back to is this idea of reverse engineering. Because I think what happens sometimes is people start ads and they sometimes don't have a concrete goal in mind. Some of the small businesses that I work with, they just say, "Oh, we'll
Yeah.
start it and we'll start generating some leads. We'll start generating some business." And it's like, well, if you can set a goal of I want to generate, if you're high ticket, 10 leads in a month, then you can start to work out using the data that you've just said, okay, well, it will get me this many clicks. That would get me this many lead forms on average. And I know that because I'm a really good salesman, I close one in three or something like that, people might say.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of reverse engineer there and then put in your budget.
That is absolutely, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what I
Cool.
would go for and always recommend.
Cool.
100%.
Okay. So now we've kind of got our budget. How do you go about researching the keywords? Because I know there's a lot of changes around keywords recently and what
Yeah.
that means. But fundamentally, how do you go about the keyword research that you do? How do you find the keywords that you think, okay, they're the ones I'm going to target?
Sure. Yeah, it's yeah, as you mentioned, it's getting, less and less important at this at this rate. Um the way I go about it again is I want to drive as many conversions, revenue, leads, whatever it is, as soon as possible. So I am going for the highest, you know, quality in terms of someone that's likely to search it to convert. So as bottom of the funnel as you can get. So
Okay.
what I would do is I would find out the the businesses, what are their key areas? Okay, it's X, Y, and Z. And then I'm looking for, like I say, the most qualified searches that people can make. And then you're going to start pulling random stuff as well. So based off the back of those, just because of how match types work. And then,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can either expand or come smaller if you need to.
Right. Okay. So if I'm an e-commerce business who's selling wallets, the keywords I would like to target are buy wallets or something like that. That's very like got a high amount of intent. People you can clearly see they're ready to make a transaction.
Yeah, 100%. And you could even get, even more high intent than that. What color are your wallets? What material are your wallets? You could go on and on and
Yeah.
on, and so yeah. But those sorts of things are where I would always like to start. So yeah,
Okay. And then how specific do you get with the buy blue leather wallets? Is that as specific you get, or do you get even more specific, or is it about just finding the ones that have the searches, I suppose?
I mean, it depends. It's sort of it's two pronged. Like I say, you want to drive stuff that's got volume behind it, and how many. It depends how many products they've got as well. Like if they want to just focus on the whole range of wallets, I guess you could just do you know, wallets for sale, buy wallets, whatever you want to do, or
Yeah.
you can really get into it. I would personally, if I'm just starting out, go as like high intent as possible. So exactly what you're selling.
Okay. That one thing that you really want to sell us for some people as well. If you've got multiple
Yeah.
products, then do you suggest narrowing it down, or again, does it come down to the budget, what you want to drive traffic to?
Yeah, it's so annoying because it's always, oh, it depends. Has the budget now changed? And all of this sort of stuff, which is, there's no cut and dry answer. It depends on their circumstances, what they want to achieve, what is it that they want to push.
Hmm.
Um, how much money do they make on certain products as well starts to come into it. Like,
Yeah.
is it even profitable for us to bid on this item? Yeah, it can go as deep as you want it to, really.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So because I speak to some people who I'm not necessarily working with, but they are running their own ads and they're small businesses. And I spoke to somebody recently who came to me and they said, Louis, I've been running ads for the last 2 days. I've spent £80 so far and I've got 2 leads. What can I change to make it to improve it? Or and then they also said, and when should I turn it off because I don't know if this is working. And my question is, because I think a lot of people fall into this trap, is that obviously when you start your ad campaigns, you don't want to make changes all the time. So how frequently do you make changes?
Yeah, I can imagine. I've never been in this situation, but I can only imagine that that is amplified when it is your own money and it's your ads that you're running. That could only feel worse, or yeah, it could only just amplify everything. If you're just starting out and you've just set it live and you've just spent £80 and you've just got your two conversions, I would recommend not touching campaigns for like 4 to 6 weeks in terms of making actual changes. Um, and in all honesty, it sounds like that person that spoke to you probably shouldn't be running their own ads because they're it's yeah it's got to be like you got to be cutthroat with it. It's like it is. I know it's money at the end of the day, but you to drive performance, you need to have an amount dedicated for testing. There's nothing guaranteed in Google Ads, so it's basically one big test that we're running to try and drive this thing. I've rambled here, but if you've just started, I'd wait, probably 6 weeks before anything. So
Hmm.
keep in mind how much you may spend in that 6 weeks and may see zero return is what I would say to that person.
Yeah, it's what I say to what you said there is perfect. Like it's just one big test, and that is very true. I think what some people go with the mentality of is like, okay, well, if I learn everything I need to learn, I'll be able to start my Google ads and I'll be able to get a return very quick. I won't make any mistakes. And
Yeah,
actually, I find that you will make those mistakes. It's just knowing the right changes to make when you see those mistakes. Because again, it comes back to that long term sort of time horizon where it's what if I'm running these things for 6 months to 12 months, sure, in the first month, the first 6 weeks, it might not go very well, but I'll learn from
yeah,
that. Okay, that ad wasn't very good. That headline didn't really make sense. No one really liked that product. So I won't run those ads, but the blue wallets, hey, they did quite well. People actually bought quite a lot of those. So now I'm just going to put all that spend into blue wallets and then just keep running it. Is that sort of the approach that you take as well?
yeah, 100%. Like I say, it's a long-term thing. So, it honestly, when you say it, he spent £80, he's got two conversions, I'm on edge already. I'm thinking, what match types is he running? How many keywords are they running? Do you know what I mean? There's like, yeah, yeah, it can get stressful if you don't know what you're doing. Like, I'm bothered by it just thinking about it. Yeah, but yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to keep everything, as a long-term view. So, like you
Yeah,
say, it may be rocky to begin with. Let's just settle down, let it run its course, and then we can start optimizing. That
yeah,
is, if you start off on the correct foundations, it's probably not the best idea without seeing the build that this person had. Is it good to sit for 6 weeks? It
yes,
may
yeah,
not be because I
yeah,
don't know
yeah, yeah,
what he's done. But
yeah, yeah.
if it's set up correctly, I'm happy to leave it 6 weeks.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's, and then because you said there as well when you were talking about it, not making any, you wouldn't want to make any big changes for 6 weeks, but of course
Yeah,
there are some changes that you should make on a more frequent basis. So what are
100%.
those smaller changes that when you're just starting your campaigns that you should be looking to do?
Yeah, cool. So we touched on somewhat like match types and the keyword landscape changing. Basically, depending on the match type you use, is basically the more lenient to the search may trigger the keyword, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what that can then do is pull in irrelevant terms. So people will search, something and it will trigger your keyword, but it's not actually relevant. These called search terms. You can go through your search terms on a regular basis. These won't make too much, you know, excluding them and adding them as negatives won't do any damage to the account. So you could do that on a regular basis, going through,
Ah,
clearing up
yeah.
those, you know, irrelevant searches, and over a long enough period of time, searches that actually don't drive
Mhm.
any performance you could start to do as well.
So you're
That
talking
is
about,
like the main one.
sorry, go on, go on.
No, go on. It's
So
all
you're
good.
talking about negative keywords there, aren't you, specifically?
Yes.
And they're the
Yeah.
frequent changes that you should make. And I think because I think this is quite an important one to really stay on top of. I've been running ads recently for somebody, and we were getting. I'll just say the example of what we were running. So we were running ads for mortgages for people who had bad credit, and we were in the searches. Our ad was showing for people who were searching to just get a loan to help them with their bad credit. Now that's very different to a mortgage with bad credit. And
Yeah.
what was happening is we were getting quite a lot of clicks for that, and we were getting conversions, which is great. However, when my client actually spoke to those people, they don't want his product or service. So I think that's really important. It's excluding the searches that you're like, I don't want anything to do with those people, or they're never gonna buy my blue wallet if they're searching for a red handbag. So just like get rid of those on the negative keyword list.
Yeah, 100%. And I just want to ask two questions off the back of that,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
just for you. What match type were you running to get that? Just out of pure interest.
That would have been, I think it was a phrase match, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's painful that. And then the second question is a rhetorical question. What's going through those people's minds when they click on a landing page that says mortgages and they're trying to get loans?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you do run into those people though, and it's just
100%. I see it in every single account. It's like, how did you even come to this? And why did you even fill in that form? It doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
But
why
yeah.
did you go and buy my thing if it's just not anything that you want? Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely get it.
Crazy. But
Um, the last sort of thing I want to touch on in a bit more detail is testing, because I
yeah.
know that so once you've kind of got your keywords, you've started your ad and you're adding your negative keywords and you're you're refining what Google's doing, so to speak. The other part that I always hear is very important, the thing I always do as well with my clients is testing. And how important is testing in your Google ads?
Yeah, 100%. You should, as I mentioned, the whole thing's just a big test, sort of, So,
Mhm.
mate, yeah, turning it everything into a test is always a good idea. If you sit back, you think about it, like you have a hypothesis on what you think may happen, and then you can execute that. But this can range from you know, making your search campaign to then including DSAs. That's a test. Is the dynamic search ads, how do they perform?
Yeah.
Different match types. Are we moving all of our keywords from exact to phrase, or adding in phrase? Does that improve or does that, you know, get rid of performance? Different
Hmm.
campaign types, display. Do we want to test that? Do we want to test YouTube? YouTube? Do we want to test performance max? Then it comes into ads. Do you want to test different ads? Do you want to test different landing pages? I could go on all day, like
Yeah.
with all the different ads tests that you could run.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super important, but not making sure that you do it intentionally. Know what you want to test before you run the test. And it also goes back as well to making sure you give it time to run. There's a big chance as soon as you press go on your test, it's going to go like that. But it's an algorithm. It needs to learn. Give it
Hmm.
time to learn.
Give it time. Yeah.
Again, I think tests typically are like 6 to 8 weeks. So again, you've got that another time period of running tests, which is always a fun time. But yeah, you have to let it go, and you have to again dedicate that budget to the test and
Yeah.
stick it through. Unless it's like horrific, like you sink your account type bad, then maybe
Yeah.
you could
Yeah.
rethink. Then maybe you could
Um,
be like, okay, we should stop that.
so I'm going to ask a bias question now because obviously I want to pick your brain for your Google Ads knowledge so I can use it to help my clients.
Sure.
Um, when you're because obviously I imagine the amount of tests you can run does depend on your budget. If you've got £500,000 a month that you're spending, well, you can probably run all the tests you want. Whereas if you've got £500 a month, it's going to be very hard to test 500 things. Um, so when you are dealing with the smaller budgets and you're picking, okay, well, what do I want to test? Specifically, we'll go for if you're generating leads.
Yep.
And it's a search campaign because they're the ones that I do. What sort of how would you select your tests? Is it I imagine it's you pick the ones, okay, these are the most like bang for my buck tests. But what sort of tests would you look to run?
Sure. For a budget of £500 a month, I would be looking at the metrics. So, how's our click through rate looking? How's the conversion rate looking? And
Hmm.
if I know you mentioned, leads is your main thing, I'd be looking at conversion rate. How's that conversion rate looking? Do you think that we could improve it based off what you've seen in other similar accounts?
Hmm.
If the answer is yes, I'm gonna go straight towards landing page. If your click through rate's a bit bad, like I'd be looking at ad testing, and stuff like that in terms of other tests. I wouldn't be looking to like add in broad match or start a performance max campaign because it doesn't make any sense on the budget, in my opinion. I would rather again run really high intent match types, keywords, all that sort of thing. Yeah, before even thinking about running those sorts of campaign types, in my opinion.
Cool. Well, thank you for the I'm gonna steal that and use that. So Jamie, thank you very much for coming on. That sort of wraps up the episode now, but I do appreciate it. Um, is there anything that you want to add to anything you said, or you're happy?
I think I'm happy, but yeah, no, thank you for asking me to come on. I really appreciate it, and it still completely weirds me out that people actually want to speak to me. So yeah,
Oh,
no, I really appreciate it. Yeah, you're a super good guy, so yeah, I appreciate you
thank you.
having me on.
No, I appreciate you coming on.